Hi, everyone, and welcome to another 4D and 4D and Wakanda user group meeting here. Sorry, it's a little bumpy start. This is 4DMethod on March 7th, 2018. Thanks for joining us. On our agenda tonight, we'll talk a little bit about what's been going on with 4DMethod and what 4DMethod is. We'll get some 4D news from Jim Sobchak and Brian Young. Boy, that's I need a glass of wine. Must be the different time of the meeting here. And Brian Young there in California, and we'll get the Wakanda news from Ricardo Mello. Then we'll get the 4D iNug e-digest from Ed Hammond. I'll do a segment called What the Blog, where I review some of the recent blog articles that is coming out on the 4D blog. And then we'll have our special topic presentation. It's a Fintech application platform by IP Ventures. We have Steve Brown joining us tonight. We'll have general questions and answers, and we'll talk about our next meeting, which happens on April 25th. Again, my name is Brent Raymond. I organize the 4DMethod 4D and Wakanda user group. Our website can be found at 4dmethod.com, and we can be reached at 4dmethod@gmail.com. Our mission is to bring together the scattered community of 4D developers and users out there, and Wakanda users. We stream all of our meetings via YouTube Live, previously YouTube Hangouts, and who knows what next, to allow people to participate from anywhere in the world. All of the meetings are recorded, and all of the presentations, which are very nice to be able to go back and see some presentations from even years ago. You can view them again or share them with others. And we attempt to provide a fresh new content and exposure for users and developers everywhere that they may be. So I'm going to just jump straight into some sad news, which certainly bears mentioning. One of our pillars of our community, Ortvan Zildjian, in Germany, passed away recently. It's difficult to know exactly what to say on such occasions, so I'll leave that up to the people that knew him best. But clearly the 4D community has suffered a great loss with his passing. And I'm just going to have a short moment of silence in his honor. And wish him Ruhe in Frieden, which is rest in peace in German. So moving on to happier news, we have the 4D Summit coming up, where we can all get together and see each other and see everyone in the community. I'll be joining everyone in DC. I hope to see you there, and I'll be excited to talk 4D and 4DMethod and Wakanda and what's been happening in your world. We'll talk a little bit more about this, I'm sure, when I hand it over to 4D for the news. But all of the events and sessions can be seen at the link below, events.4d.com. But it's going to be an exciting time. DC is a great place to even go vacation. I myself am bringing the family. So hope to see you all there. And now over to Jim and Brian, where we'll get a little bit of a rundown of what's happening with 4D.
Okay, thank you, Brent. Thank you, Ed. Thanks for that a few moments of silence there for Ordwin. Yeah, he will be missed for sure. We read all the outpouring of sympathy for him on the iNug, and yeah, he was a pillar of the 4D community, so we will miss him. Our thoughts also go out to all our friends there in the Northeast who are suffering through that the big nor'easter that's blowing through right now. We're kind of glad we're not having the summit this week instead of this time next month, because it would be pretty nasty out there. But hopefully that moves through quickly and everyone's safe and okay. Thanks, Brent and Ed, for organizing 4DMethod as always, and thanks for inviting Brian and myself and Ricardo and the 4D and Wakanda teams for participating. We really enjoy doing this. Yeah, as you might imagine, the entire 4D team here in San Jose is preparing for the summit in Washington, D.C. It's only a month away now, April 3rd through April 5th, and those last 30 days fly by like about 4 days. So if you haven't registered yet, there's still time. Brian will talk about some of the deadlines that are coming up soon. But there is still plenty of time. There's room at the hotel, but all of that is slipping away quickly. So I've just returned myself from a site visit in Washington, D.C., where I went to see the newly remodeled Grand Hyatt Hotel. They finished the remodel in January, and it's fantastic. It looks like a brand new hotel. The area where we'll be downstairs in the conference center is all completely remodeled. It's fantastic. It's going to be a really pleasant surrounding for our sessions and keynotes, and the restaurants there are great. Also visited the Summit party venue, and have we announced that?
Yes.
Okay, so got to see that. We're planning a great evening. Great view of the Washington D.C. skyline. I got to taste some of the food that we'll be serving. So the whole week is going to be just fantastic. So we're really looking forward to that. And of course, the main highlight is the speakers that we have coming from all over the world. They're waiting to wow you with their presentations. Our guys are rehearsing now, and Comanchero Renseri does a great job of getting all the material together and making sure that it meets his standards, which are super high. And this year, our founder and president of 4D, Laurent Rebardier, is more active than ever. He'll be doing a master session after the keynote on Tuesday, which is about an hour, and that'll be great. And then he'll also be co-teaching the advanced training on Thursday, along with JPR. So those two together, along with the master session, those are going to be two sessions you won't want to miss. It's very unusual for us to have those two people at the summit at the same time with this much material. So, and as Brent mentioned, it's your chance to meet up with your colleagues again, enjoy the camaraderie of a 4D summit. We only do these every 2 years now, so you don't get this opportunity very often. It's a great time, I think, for me personally, and I hope for others. It's a great time to find inspiration and to renew passion about the 4D development platform. So I'm looking forward to being there. Hopefully we'll see you soon in Washington, D.C. Brian?
Thank you, Jim. I'll be quick. My main focus is the summit, but let's take a look at a couple numbers. 27 days until the DC summit, 13 days until the Paris summit. It all lines up so that between now and then is the natural timing for when our V16 R6 beta goes to full release. And then the next version of the beta comes out, which according to typical scheduling should be called V17. So a lot of things are coming together all at once, right around the summit time. And it's really going to be the biggest summit we've had in a long time as far as content goes. We're unveiling major changes to the 4D platform that we've been teasing and are excited to finally talk concretely about. Some of the changes are hiding in plain sight with the features you've seen come out in the latest betas. We have products to announce. We have new services to offer partners. We have so much going on at this summit, and it's all packed into these 3 short days. Hopefully that means you guys can come. If you haven't already signed up, this is the time to do it. We're running a special promotion just this week because we want to make sure if you have any excuses left for not coming, we take those away from you. So you can get $100 off your registration. But more than that, the hotel prices go up at the end of this week. If you haven't booked a hotel, this is the week to do it because prices will go up substantially after Friday. So please take a look at the website. If you're not registered, we've released some more sessions just recently. We have another one to put up in the coming days, and we have an agenda to publish in the coming weeks. And I really hope to see you there. Thank you, Brent.
Thanks, Brian. Yeah, and thanks, Jim. Yeah, I'm real excited. I love going to the summits. I mean, it's always pretty mind-blowing, and it's a torrent of material. But thankfully, you get to take it all home and go over it and keep it for years to come. I actually just pulled out a session from 2011 that solved a problem for me recently. So Always a good experience and great for anyone who either uses a 4D or Wakanda-based application or web application, or certainly anyone who develops on either platform. So let's kick over next to the Wakanda news from Wakanda. We have Ricardo Mello, the Chief Commercial Officer. Oh wait, no, that's not Ricardo. Or is it? It's Black Panther. This just kind of a little joke there.
Yeah, I want that kind of treatment.
You know, well, we need your mask on there next time. Huh? I know that I've seen a big
That's
bump.
great. I love it.
a big bump in traffic to 4DMethod. I'm wondering if perhaps Wakanda has as well. In fact, one of the top pages on 4DMethod is now what is Wakanda. So actually, it's a good thing. There is no such thing as bad PR, right? So you know, it's a good thing that the Black Panther's getting such great reviews. I've seen it, great movie, and it reflects well on Wakanda, I think. So
very nice, very nice. I was going to mention something about it, because yes, we did have a great spike. February has shown the biggest month in terms of download for the last 2 years. It's pretty insane. I have 3 new clients that are related to, including one that is named his company Wakanda International.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah, it's very, very, very interesting time in terms of because of the movie. So yes. So anyways, thank you for inviting me again. And I'm glad to see Steve there. Me and Steve have worked together. So I know that he has a fantastic product. I look forward to see his presentation today. And in terms of Wakanda, the exciting thing that is coming very soon is a better integration with Ionic. And we're going to solve one of the issues that we have today, which is configuration. Because then to develop for mobile, you just will hook yourself to the Wi-Fi, and you will be able to test and execute your mobile straight on your phone without much configuration. So we look very forward to this. It's scheduled to come by June, this feature, and we are very excited about that. So this is one of the criticisms that we have right now. It's not just related to Wakanda, but it's because mobile development with the Android SDK and all the SDKs and stuff that you have to install sometimes is a burden, and we help a lot of clients with support in that matter. So if you have experienced some issues in that sense, let me know. We will probably be able to help you in terms of configuring and get you through to that phase. But very soon, we will not need that anymore. I also would like to remember you all that our blog is having a lot of hits because of the templates. Pretty much I love it, the Black Panther there. So we have the last one, which is a template with observables. It's still the last one that we have released, but we have right now a set of about 5 or 6 templates that are very rich. You have a good example of how to start your project with Wakanda, with something already with a crude environment, and it's quite handy. So I strongly recommend you to have a look. And the news in terms of business that are very exciting is that I have been participating for the last 6 months on the local, blockchain meetup here in Vancouver. And we have actually right now 3 projects on the blockchain using some of our technology, and a lot of front-end development with that. So I'll be helping them with from the release of the white paper to the implementation of their prototypes. Okay. So if you have thought about a blockchain and you want to have a chat, don't hesitate to let me know. Okay, and that's all for me.
Okay, thank you, Ricardo, or shall I say, Black Panther.
All right.
Yeah, that's great that Wakanda is getting into the blockchain game. There's a lot of action happening out there, and I know a lot of developers are getting inquiries as far as that's concerned. So it'll be it'd be neat to take a look at some of the projects that you're doing. Perhaps when you get to that point, be great to have a presentation on one or two of them.
I'll be totally on for that. And interesting enough, all the projects that we have right now, all the 3 projects, none of them are in the fintech industry, which is Mr. Steve is the king of it. So they are related to other issues, like a law firm that wants to do a blockchain project for all the judges. We have another one that is a community based, and another one for the health industry. So pretty exciting.
Cool. Yeah. No, that's the e-wallet that we might mention that you mentioned earlier might be able to take advantage of such a thing. So thanks, Ricardo.
All right. Thank you, guys.
And moving right along, I was talking with Ed the other day, and we couldn't help but notice that thinking back into the history of ACI, that's what 4D was previously named. Now, of course, currently 4D. That the first product that came out, first version of 4D, was called Silver Surfer, and then of course came 4D, or perhaps some would say the Fantastic Four, and now of course we have Wakanda. So it has quite a marvelous history, I would say. So here's the question I'd like to have answered at the 4D Summit. Who is the Marvel fan at 4D that's driving the product development and albeit the naming of the products? And perhaps we could talk about what to call the next products that we have coming up. There's some other great characters out there. There's Thor and Wolverine. A little bit tough with Wolverine. He's an angry guy. There's Captain America and his whole team. What will the theme for V17 perhaps be? Ghost Rider, or maybe perhaps be one of the more obscure bad guys, like Battle Axe says, "Out of my way, Shellhead." We're not so much. We don't live in the shell so much with 4D. We live in the Code Explorer, and 3D Man. Well, I think we're past him already. Or 4 Bushman. I'm not sure what's going on there. Or just go straight with Lunatic and be done with it. So yeah, Lunatic mode is always got to be interesting. So anyways, yeah, I'd love to know what the history of all the Marvel Comics naming is for 4D products. Perhaps we could get some insight somehow. So moving on.
Laura up on stage, so maybe I will slip that in.
Yeah. No, I might put that in the comment jar.
You can borrow the slide.
Yeah, right. Yeah, you can have it. So thanks, Ed, for that idea there, and moving right along to the iNug e-Digest with Ed Hammond, where he reviews some of the recent discussion happening on the NUG.
Thanks, Brent. It's interesting contemplating that next superhero. Will they be an individual or a team like the Avengers? My personal theory is, just like 4D itself, it has multiple segments and talents. It's got to be a team. And with so much out there to learn about 4D, it's good to avail yourself of all the information possible. One of those is the iNug and the forums, the 4D forums. I encourage you all to subscribe to the iNug and read through the forums. There's a lot of good content out there, and usually somebody's got a problem that you may be having also, or have already solved. It can help them out. The forums, a lot of people don't like that format, but you can have email delivered right to your inbox for every message that you're interested in. So look at what your options are on the 4D forums. And with that being said, I'll get right into my digest. The first thread that I thought was interesting from the iNug was posted by Tim Nevels. And the subject is failed to synchronize resources folder. Error. Well, he was having some weird errors with some previous versions of 4D. Errors coming from the resource cache locations on Windows and Mac. And my thoughts, having experienced some of these myself, is know what your user environment and your client software is. Be aware of conflicts, and it's not always your programming or 4D's fault for something going wrong. So sometimes you have to dig into the system level or your IT environment or your IT staff's tinkering to see what's going on. Next, there was a tip from Kirk Brooks, a method to calculate a formula using C object values. And this was a single message thread, which is exactly what the thread subject says. It is code to accomplish this task, and it uses Canon Smith's object component. There was a SQL question posed by Stephen Orth on how to delete rows using a SQL statement. Beware, always use a where clause if you're going to delete rows. Bad things can happen if you just say delete from table. I know from experience. He received various tips, including creating a list box structure from the statement that returns no records. In other words, using limit 0 into list box. And there was a caution from, I believe, Jeff Kane to be careful when using select star from table, where the table may contain an object field. The result is a runtime fail error. So watch out with some of the intricacies of the 4D SQL implementation. Kenneth Geiger had a thread on document capture. And that is a number of messages that follow the ins and outs of document management systems based on 4D. It's quite interesting if you're planning something like that on your own. Jeff Kane had a message entitled, "The Writing is on the Wall. Testing the new network layer and all issues related to 64-bit." And his thread includes a link to the Ars Technica article that outlines the demise of 32-bit applications on the Mac OS. Our own personal experience at the Art Institute of Chicago is that we have been running the Mac OS 64-bit server, which means we have to use the new network layer. Currently, we're using 16.3 hotfix 1 and 32-bit clients. We've had very few problems with the new network layer since moving to hotfix 1. There's a couple of things where disconnecting clients from the server still haunt us a little bit, but they can be kicked off from the admin window now. We are waiting for one of our integral plugins to go to 64-bit before testing 64-bit clients. But the new network layer has been very stable for us in the current configuration. James Knight has a thread, "Problems installing built application." And that covers a variety of issues in creating a built application and not using the 4D data file. Also concerns code signing and how to get that implemented for your built applications, getting around the gatekeeper function on the Mac OS. And finally, there was a solved code signing Mac thread message from Craig at Sustainable Solutions, a tip on how to set the developer certificate in the keychain so that the operating system will react properly to your application. There are a number of components and plugin announcements. Chip Scheide has two different components, a text utility component and a set utility component. Both are available, and there will be links on the eDigest page of the 4DMethod website. Patrick Emanuel has a new version of QS Toolbox. Seth Leeper posted a link to the new version of Win32 API. It is now up to 8.2.2. And Jeff Gran has posted a component for 4D Write Pro, find and replace component. So if you're moving to 4D Write Pro, getting ready for that 64-bit world out there, you may want to check out his find and replace component. And that is all of the eDigest news I have this month, Brent.
Thank you, Ed, and thank you especially for highlighting the 64-bit issues with the plugins and components. They can be very difficult to escape for those who are limited to 32-bit versions of their plugins, and unfortunately, if that kind of thing continues, one could end up off the grid and not able to use 64-bit versions of 4D in their application. So, so that would be very unfortunate. So thanks again, Ed, and just a reminder to everybody, all of the discussions that Ed highlighted are available at 4DMethod on the eDigest tab, and jump in the NUG and join the discussion and jump in the 4D forum. There's a lot of there's a wealth of information out there that you can take advantage of pretty much immediately if you run these applications. So moving on to another wealth of information, the 4D blog, which has just had, again, as I mentioned earlier, just a torrent of information coming out, which is reflective of the torrent of new features that are coming out of 4D and the engineers at 4D bringing out new commands and new capabilities and pretty much revolutionary new ways of writing applications. And I for one, am very excited to witness it at this summit. Whether or not my brain can handle it. One of my favorite Far Side comics there, Gary Larson. All credit to him. If you can't read the subtitle there, it's Mr. Osborne. May I be excused? My brain is full. Sometimes that's how I feel looking at the 4D blog. For instance, there's a whole series on collections, which appear to be perhaps what's hiding in plain sight, as Brian mentioned earlier. There's a great blog article. All of them are excellent. I mean, it's a mix between dialogue and code examples. There's a great article on querying collections, doing calculations in collections, such as, you know, your sums and averages, and querying, obviously, we're all familiar with. But it's like doing a find an array, but it's with the full capability of a query string. You get the idea. We're database people. Being able to do to combine collections, two different collections in different ways, sorting collections. And then on to autocomplete function is now expanded in the language to attributes, which is great. So if you're using dot notation already, that's wonderful. It'll recognize what attributes are in those objects, and you can and in the editor it will autocomplete for them. Coming back to collections, converting collections to other language items like perhaps an array of objects or other kinds of arrays. To a certain degree, collections themselves can be thought of as arrays that can be created in line and handled in a whole new, interesting sort of perspective. Then there's a mind-blowing new thing, shared storage, which is wonderful. And for those of you who aren't familiar with it, it's basically an object or a collection that can be shared throughout all clients, at least all processes, I believe. Correct me if I'm wrong. And you can treat it as shared memory space. And you can check it out, check it in, so that there's no possible worry about collision, just like you might use a semaphore or before, you know, in the olden days, or now if you're doing that in your current application. Well, all of that is just going to be totally new. In addition to things that are totally new, dynamic forms, being able to pass in a 4D object with all of the specifications of the form that you're about to show the user. So you can control all of that through 4D language and manipulating objects. Then on to path objects, changing the ways that you deal with files on disk. And at that point, you know, that's when I just have to stop, because my brain is full, and I can't stop thinking about the ways that I'm going to use these commands and the new approach to the language. And really, cheers to 4D for really putting out great new features. And I think it's going to really speed up and help 4D and companies that use 4D and developers that use 4D stay ahead of the curve on on having competitive software. So good on you guys, and good job with the blog. So that's all for What the Blog today. So on to what I'm sure everybody here is waiting for, our special topic. We have Steve Brown joining us from Perth, Australia, hence the changed meeting time. And thank you all for joining us at the augmented time that we have here. Looking at his LinkedIn profile, it has the humble technologist, entrepreneur, investor. Of course, you shouldn't have stopped there, because it's so much more as well. And I'm not even being facetious. He's got quite a professional history. He has over 30 years of experience in the IT and finance industries. His areas of expertise include the design and development of IT platforms for the banking and finance industries, electronic wallet, e-wallet kind of functionality, credit contracts, electronic transaction and payment processing, or perhaps better known as FTPOS, and handling ATM transactions, payment gateways, credit card processing, data center design and management, retail point of sale, accounting systems, and even agricultural and rural management. He is here to show us ePremium, which represents over 20 years of active 4D development. It's being developed up to today, with their push to make all of their code thread safe, which is just monumental and as far as performance is concerned. All the code is organized into a series of powerful and reusable components. And the application connects to at least 5 different APIs, including Salesforce, Proviso, Yodlee, and PPSR Securities Registry. And before I run out of breath between Steve and all the new features at 4D, I'll hand off the presentation to Steve to wow us with his application. So Steve, welcome to 4D Method.
Thank you, Brent. Thank you, guys. I'll just assign the screen at this point in time. There we go. Hopefully everyone can see that okay. So thanks for the great introduction. I don't know whether there's much more I can add.
You're welcome.
It's well put together. As a brief overview of what we've been doing, primarily our company has been developing software for 30 odd years, and also specifically in the financial services sector. The product that I'm going to show you today is our core technology product, which is a product called ePremium. And we've got two components of that. We actually have a Wakanda front-end web application and also a back-end 4D application with some proprietary technology that sits in the middle called eConnect. As a quick overview, I've loaded up this schematic diagram, which basically describes a little bit about what our particular product is. We have multiple financial services products that we have actually built on this core technology. So we can do auto lending, commercial lending, consumer lending, insurance premium funding, microfinance loans. We've done work down in Mexico, small ticket lending for emerging markets and underbanked and unbanked parties, phone recharge, international bill payments, and also international fund remittance. The particular product I'm going to show you today is a consumer loan configuration of the product, and how that ties into a project we've been working down in Australia for the dental industry with a company called SmileRight that does financing of dental procedures. We have a number of APIs that we connect into, credit reporting APIs, messaging APIs such as Trilio and Mandrill, banking connections into various banking networks, government agency connections, security registers, credit card network connections, and the list goes on. There's a lot of APIs that we actually build. All of this is designed in such a way that it will run independent of the application itself. So it's totally disconnected at this particular point. We normalize all the data, which means we can hot swap out APIs as required into the core framework and logic. This is then presented via eConnect. eConnect is our own data schema. It's an open schema which we've actually built and put together. And this then allows third parties to connect into our core technology suite. And as an example of that, we have basically built a whole front-end merchant interface in Wakanda that supports consumer pages, merchant pages, promoter pages, and funder pages as stakeholders to this particular site. So enough of that. What I'll do now is actually take you in and show you an example. The first example I'm going to show you is a front-end web interface. So I mentioned before, this is the particular client that we're dealing with, SmileRight. They offer a range of financial service products. If you went to smileright.com.au, you'll be able to actually see a little bit about what products, features, and services they offer. And if you actually go here to look to get a quote on a particular product, this is one of our front-end interfaces where this is connecting directly into our 4D database to do real-time calculations on loans. So you can drag and drop the slider and appropriately it recalculates accordingly. That's a single command where all that the app is passing through is the amount of money and the duration of the period that the customer is looking for, and all of the calculations are actually provided back by the platform using the 4D database. So what I'll do now is I'll go into the Wakanda side of it, and I'm going to give an illustration, probably best shows the power of what we've done and how it ties end to end, because it's quite a large project and quite a large undertaking. But this is a merchant portal where a merchant can log in. A merchant from our terminology, is effectively the dental practitioner. And the dental practitioner is looking to invite patients for treatment of their procedure. So it could be a filling, it could also be a full mouth reconstruction or implants or whatever the treatment might be. What we have here is a dashboard that gets displayed. This also gets fed directly from the 4D database for each merchant. But you'll see here various operators, the customer, the type of treatment, the amount of money that the person is looking to spend, and the finance product that was offered to this particular person. We automatically provide full updating on email statuses as to whether or not the patient has clicked on it, whether they've read it. When they get onto their invitation status, you see whether it's being viewed, whether they're proceeding with finance or paying cash or card. And we also track if it's been expired. And then as they go through the financial aspect of applying for the loan, all of those statuses are tracked automatically for you. So typically, a dentist would look to dental practice would look to perform a simple invite. What I'll do here is we have a patient lookup because we import a lot of the patients into the system, and you can basically select somebody that's already been used. It pre-populates. And appropriately you see the details appear here. What we then do is go to the next screen. On the next screen, this is where you set out the type of loan that you're actually dealing with. We would have here cosmetic type treatment that say we have to support, typically in a dental practice, they'll produce what's known as a treatment plan. Looks something very much similar to this in most countries. It basically itemizes the type of treatment that's actually being done. At this point in time, all we do is we just drag and drop that. So this is communicated to the patient. And I can put in the amount of money that the person is interested in spending and choose the finance product associated with that. So I can say, look, they're interested in a no deposit loan. So it automatically calculates the financial repayments and also the duration. Click next. I can personalize that message. Choose the particular practitioner that's doing the work. We support both communication methods of email and SMS. Obviously, I can't show you my phone to show you the SMS arriving, but we preview that so you can see basically what that looks like there. With a unique URL on a smartphone, they can click on that and commence their application. And alternatively, we send an email. So I'm about to go through and complete it. They press send. The invitation is now sent. We've got this little button here. This is a shortcut on our staging or demonstration server that allows us to go in and view the email to save us sort of presentation, patient card, I should say, that is presented for the treatment. So you'll see here that's all put forward. I can view the treatment plan at this point in time and see that treatment plan I've uploaded. I can see the details of the dentist, read that personal message that was actually sent. And then when I hit next, it basically says, what are my options? So it will present you with $1 per day option for repayment, automatically calculated. If the patient wishes to propose changes for their treatment, they can type a little message to their dentist here, and that is automatically fed back to the dentist. If the person wishes to hold off for now and choose a later period of time in which to make a decision, they can do that. Or if they choose not to proceed, we then complete a survey, which then talks about, is it cheaper options required? Is it fear of the procedure, whatever the query might be. What this actually does is provide direct feedback to the dashboard, and the dentist knows exactly what's happening at point of sale as it occurs. what will then happen is, as the person goes in to look to proceed with the treatment, they get offered a finance offer at this particular point in time. So, or alternatively, they can proceed to pay cash at the practice or use their credit card, however they may wish to pay. So if I choose to pay a hand of pain, it then moves directly into the loan application. And this starts the process. Lending in Australia, in most countries also, is what's termed as code compliant. It's a heavily regulated industry. There's no different in the US or various other countries, the UK and so on. There's a lot of compliance that is actually required, and a certain way that data is meant to be collected, stored and dealt with. We support both lending in the US, lending in the UK and lending in Australia at this point in time. What we have is then a series of steps, and I won't bother to complete this, but this is the form that starts going through the process. But the party would complete their application form. At the review step, they submit that. The system automatically does a serviceability check to see whether they can service the loan. It does capacity checks and sensitivity checks around compliance requirements. If they pass all of that, we then do a credit check, which is similar in the US to a FICO score. What that then tells us is their credit worthiness via public bureaus. If they pass that, we then present to the applicant an approved, conditionally approved status, and then they can continue to review their documentation online. So that's literally presenting all of the documents on the screen. They digitally sign for every document and then accept their contract using a two-factor authentication system at the end of the contract. So that is all the front-end application work which engages between the merchant and then also showing you the role of an applicant choosing to apply for finance. What I'll do now is show you where that all ends up. So here is our product, and this is our sandbox. So as a 4D application, there's a couple of unique features about what we're dealing with. I'll first of all touch on a little bit about the financial aspect of that transaction that would have come through and so on. If I go into maintenance just here and have a look at lending, all the invitations that get sent out by practitioners get stored in our platform here. So that particular one that we just did then, that invitation automatically has appeared on the server. The invitation details are here as well, along with the unique URLs associated with this particular application. It's got all commencement dates, application dates, etc. All the quoted values actually appear here, along with any comments that may have gone from the dentist, any responses that have come from the applicant themselves or the patient, all the communication and messaging. So we have our own built-in communication, email, platform communication system. So what this does is this provides HTML emails that basically get generated and sent out to the patient. This is the comms messages you would have seen this if I opened up my mail client. However, you would see here that the merchant gets notified, everybody gets notified all the way through to say that they've commenced their application and they're applying for finance, and so on and so forth. And any supporting documentation. So that particular document, we have our own document management platform that we've built, again, which supports documentation. So that document that we've just loaded up, that's it there. You can actually see that documents arrived. We take any document that's dragged and dropped into the system, and then we create a unique global identifier, and then that is stored in a number of repositories. We support local server storage via directories. We support FTP, and we also support Dropbox and third-party players such as Box and people like that, where you can store documents remotely. So from there, that particular contract would then become a quotation in due course. So if I was to go into quotation, that particular contract's not there, but I'll just pick a current one because we haven't gone all the way through to make an application. But if I pick this one here, so this is the applicant. This basically tells you a little bit about the financial aspects of the applicant. In particularly what this contract is basically being charged out at, interest rates, fees, charges, etc. It creates a payment schedule, anticipated payment schedule for this particular contract. And how this contract is assessed is through a series of checks. So if I go in here to capacity check, this is where we look at the data that we collected at the front end, and it's automatically assessed and accepted. So it's summarized here as the amount of income they're actually earning and then their appropriate expenses. There is a capacity check matrix, or sorry, I should say credit check matrix that we use. And this is the approval matrix just here. So when you're looking at the approval matrix, this basically stores all of the financial decisioning tools that are made up to actually do this particular task, including normalized data in relation to poverty indexes, which in Australia, this is a requirement where we compare average income around Australia and expenses for families to survive, various credit checks that are done with third parties, and all of these matrices basically deal with whether people have been bankrupted, whether they've had court actions, whether they've got other personal circumstance data that we check for, along with ID checks as well. So we support full government agency ID checks. So by people entering driver's licenses, passport details, and so on, we will actually validate and check for fraud in relation to that verification, KYC of the customer, in other words. Also, at the same time, we support things such as collection of all the data. So in that application, we would have pulled all this information about their employment history, financial data, which includes their residencies, income and expenses, assets and liabilities. And each of these items you can drill down and appropriately see all the associated data that goes with that. Okay, so once the contract is approved, and you'll see there's a couple of checks there. There's a capacity check, there's a credit check. We can see the results of that credit check there. And that then shows you the, in this case, a Vita score for Australia. This is similar to Equifax or Experian, as other global providers of credit reporting. So once that's all approved, this contract is then, or this is then converted into a contract. Now, contracts themselves basically take all that existing data and I'm just going to get an active contract here. So we'll get Greg Norman, the great white shark. And this then shows all the details in relation to the activation of the contract. And now these payments are actually scheduled for payment. This particular contract is completed because they've all been paid, but this would show all the scheduled payments with all the banking details and so on, along with proposed settlements for the various individuals, and then all statistical reporting, which are known as KPIs, in relation to the performance of this particular loan. So there is a whole heap of things. I won't spend too much more time, but effectively what we've built is not only does it do acquisition of loans, acceptance and approval of all loans, it then deals with all of the automation of collections as well. So in the processing section, on a day-to-day basis, if you're running a portfolio of loans, you hit process payments. and you hit start processing, it generates a file automatically for the bank and it's submitted to the bank. The bank then does the collections via direct debit authorities, typically here in Australia and in other places. Then if there's any defaults in relation to loans, they then process what's known as process DDR returns, which is where you would go through and payment failures would appear here, and then they can be rescheduled for further usage, for further collection, and automatically all of the notification goes out to all the associated parties. So that's an example of one configuration of this particular product. Built into the product, as I said, this can be configured for microfinance, it can be configured for auto lending, it can be configured for international bill payment, a number of different examples. E-wallet, which is one of the projects that we did, and it's another example of how the product can actually be used. Some of the more technical aspects of the product, which are worthwhile noting, if you look here at eConnect, which is what I was referring to before, we have built our own schema. This is how third parties connect into our platform, and I'll just load up the schema now so you can see it. So all of the database tables and all the database fields are published automatically, and you can see here that there's a myriad of tables that you can access. Each of these tables have their own unique values, and we then have various statuses, whether you can set, whether you can modify, whether you can query. We provide examples of code. So if I want to create this particular transaction, we provide the sample of code, a snippet of code to show you how to do it, and then the response that you're actually going to receive. So that's creating an invitation via our platform. So that's how people connect into us. This is what we support for developers. Oops, sorry, picked the wrong one. There we go. The other aspect of what we do is, which is quite unique, is all of our data when we look to configure. We have what's known as themes. So themes relate to how this looks and feels for any particular client. We can create a range of themes. Each one of these themes has their own unique splash screens, logos, iconization, color schemes. All of that is totally configurable, and then applying a theme, it actually takes place, and then all the way through, this then applies over the top of what you're actually dealing with your various menus. One of the other nice features of the product is, as I said to you, it's from out of the box, it's fully multilingual, multi-currency, and so what we're actually showing here is our settings area. And actually, before we do that, I'll just take you back in here to countries. This gives you a bit better idea. Every country in the globe is automatically built into the platform. So if I bring up Australia, for example, where we're running this particular database, we support all of the ISO codes in relation to the various units of decimals, currency codes, localization of flags. All of these are variables which can be accessed via our eConnect platform, right the way down to mapping of streets and the way that address formats actually appear. We then deal with all API settings, and this is where you can choose the API that you want to connect into for this particular service. Once that's done, you then look to go into the host settings, which is where I was before. And it's here that you can basically define all of your external services, such as credit checks or email configuration, etc. And these can be hot swappable out of the system at all times. One of the last things I'd like to focus on, just to give you a bit of an idea, is of what we do. A couple of things. We build in all stationery associated with contracts and the development of contracts. So any particular contract is all built into the platform, and we support Write Pro and Write Classic to basically design your contracts. This is an example of a contract here in Write Classic, and they haven't exported this one into Write Pro yet in this sample database, but that then supports the mail merging of any legal documents, and that's all baked into the system as well. So we've got messaging, we've got document storage, we've got all of the decisioning that goes around financial services. We also have all of this system is totally multilingual. To give you a bit of an idea, when we look to support another country or another language, we basically export out an XLIF file, which a translator in Excel or any text editor can basically support the 3,000 unique labels and lookup lists and so on that we're supporting in the platform. What that looks like, though, when it's translated and sucked back in, is when I log out of the system, and if I go down here now and change this to say Chinese traditional. So now this is all rendered with Chinese character sets. So we can support an unlimited amount of languages. Each operator can have their own unique login. I won't continue any further because I don't actually read Chinese. But as you can see there, the system supports multiple languages that can be accessed by individual clients logging into the platform. So in practical illustration, we've supported previous instances where we did Mexican translation for a client that was operating in Mexico for local operators, and they were also operating in the US with English-speaking call center staff. So that allowed for, on one environment, multiple language sets using the platform. So that's probably, I'm trying to keep the presentation pretty short and pithy. If there's any questions that anybody has, I'm happy to take some questions or look for further offline questions if people have an interest or desire. But that's our little journey with 4D. It's a fairly long and ongoing journey, and to date it's been very enjoyable. So thanks for your time.
Yeah, thanks, Steve. I wanted to. Oh, we got some echo there. I just wanted to mention that this is one of my favorite kind of demos where it really focuses on the interface. It focuses on the business and how 4D and the business has been able to deliver with their application and the functionality via this environment, and one can only imagine the complexity that underlies an application like this, and to that end, I guess to the business end, what steps are involved in onboarding new customers or new industries for this platform, and how long does such a process take?
Sure. Look, depending on the particular application that someone's looking to do, if it's an existing product suite that we've already built and is part of our library of existing off-the-shelf products, the onboarding process can be done quite relatively quickly. All of our installations are hosted in Amazon Cloud. We basically can configure up a site within a day, pretty much, and be operational, at least from the point of view of then doing localized customization, which typically is email communication templates, all of that type of stuff. You'll see one of the things I will show you here is how we actually deal with emails. But if I go into the desktop of this machine here and look at our sorry, I'm just going to minimize this. So the underlying structure of the application itself, we have, this is just multiple version numbers here, but we have a customized template of all the emails and so on, the communication emails that go out, and this can be added to or expanded upon, but these are all triggered by the platform, and they're all, again, unique for a particular country. And they can be multilingual in destination, so depending on where they're going. But each email has a HTML format, as you see there, with merge reference fields. And we also have subject lines and the label that goes out. And in addition, we can have SMSs as well that go out with that. So you can create your own unique SMS messages, and then they will be automatically detected when that comms message goes out. And if SMS is selected, they will send out that appropriate template. That's part of the configuration. The other part of the configuration that takes a little bit of time is just the resources that we're actually using. So again, you'll see here that these are all the different language files. So if I go in here, here's all the XLIF files that we actually support in relation to supporting what we term is Australian language, because language is not just about a particular country, it also can be used as a marketing tool. No doubt if you've ever followed companies like Virgin and people like that, Virgin Atlantic, they often will run a more colloquial theme where they'll look at unique bits of language and communication which actually relates to the local market. You can create subsets of languages effectively in the resources files. We then also have all the appropriate import data that gets imported automatically. And here we have various country data and lookup data. These are all localized lists, so I can have categories, and again, these are just TSV files. So we've designed it in such a way that pretty much we supply in advance to a client a series of configuration files, which they basically configure themselves, supply us updated lists if they want to change things, and then that automatically gets imported as the database launches. And if there's any updates along the way, they get timestamp changed and imported along the way as well. So from the point of view of delivering a solution in a timely manner, it's a fairly rapid turnaround. What does take time is bespoke development, where somebody wants to do something outside of what is off the shelf from our perspective. And that's where it needs to be scoped and analysed and see how we can reuse existing code or look to develop unique code for the particular application.
I mean, we mentioned earlier that this application has been in development, active development, at least 20 years, right?
Correct.
And you know, during those 20 years, what kind of development staff size and man-woman power has been required to produce this? Because I mean, it's just from a development standpoint, it's just it's a monumental work.
Yeah, certainly. Our dev team has grown and shrunk over time at various stages. Obviously, around the GFC, no one wanted to finance much at all, so there was a slowdown in our staffing sizes. But typically, on average, over a 20-year period, we've had anywhere from 5 to 15 full-time developers working on the project.
Yeah, I mean that's pretty incredible. Even with between 5 to 15, and I'm sure that's fluctuated. But with a product of such immense complexity and configurability, I imagine it generally takes some time for developers to get up to speed. So it's amazing what you've done with pretty much a small amount of development staff. Compared to other companies that would require the entire company's effort to and whole engineering staff to produce such a thing. And also, I really love the not only the application design within the 4D environment, but also within your web pages. Do you have a designer on staff, or do you reach out to a designer elsewhere for such things?
So our staff actually consists of not only developers, but we have internal designers as well that work on, and copywriters at the same time. So we've really taken on board not just being a development shop. We find that part of what most clients are chasing today is a complete solution. They're looking for people, certainly our client base is looking for people that basically they can go to as a one-stop shop to say, hey, we're in this business. This is what we require. Can you supply that? So we actually support all of our own hosting of all of our sites for our clients. So we do all the Amazon configuration, deal with all the environments that we're setting up, and support our customers through that process. So some of our staff also consist of system managers of the platform.
So with such so much effort going on for so many years, what are you working on right now?
So currently at the moment we have a number of unique projects that we're moving into. We've taken on a very large publicly listed company as a client here in Australia that are now adapting our product to suit their requirements. They've got some very unique, specific data analytics required at the back end, which we're now doing. So that's a fairly large project that we're actually dealing with. The other aspects also are things such as quite often we will get approached by organizations that have been referred to us and just said, look, can we actually look to do bespoke development for you? So we're looking at a number of projects at the moment which we've tendered on, and they're in the various throes of finalization. But one of those particular projects is a project management system for job reporting and so on, and it's using the same paradigm. As most of as developers, obviously the thing that we want to do is to be able to reuse as much code as possible. If we can write a piece of code, we try and spend quality time to make it as robust as possible and also as broad in application as possible. So we're then able to use this whole framework of 20 years of development as a platform and a basis to move forward on any particular project. So we've seen in more recent times a number of projects that have come through which people are now looking outside of the financial services sphere and saying, hey, this is a paradigm for us works. We just need to change the business logic to suit our particular business, and obviously the database would change accordingly. So that's actually something that we've been doing a lot of work in at the moment. And other than that, we're now moving into looking at some blockchain applications as well as another project which we're working to. So it's interesting to hear Ricardo's doing a little bit of blockchain work. So we might have to touch base, Ricardo.
You're the man, Steve. Yep.
Ricardo, for those of you that are not aware, Ricardo and I have known each other for a few years now. We worked on a project in the US where Wakanda was instrumental in providing not only some good technology, but also supplying some outsourced services where we used Wakanda and 4D services out of Morocco for some components that we had actually built. So yeah, we've had an ongoing relationship with the company, and I can say that it's been a very good relationship.
Same from our side.
Yeah. Okay. I'm looking around on our Reddit page to see what questions there are. I think it's mostly due to the time difference in the meeting that there aren't more outstanding questions. But I encourage you all to reach out to Steve with any questions that you may have. You can find his IP Ventures at ipventures.com.au, and specifically the page for ePremium at ePremium.io. It's quite a platform, and as I mentioned, quite a volume of work, and is testament to not only 4D but their development capacity and abilities, and frankly vision. I mean, it's you know, your ability to see this through and have it executed to this point is extremely impressive. So congratulations on that accomplishment. But I encourage you all to check out ePremium on their website, which is, again, from a design and technical perspective, beautiful. and yeah, so feel free to reach out to Steve.
And just lastly, Brent, if anybody has any questions, they can email me direct, Steve, STEVE, at ipventures.com.au. And we're always open to discuss licensing and commercialization opportunities in any jurisdiction. So happy to work. Okay,
thanks, Steve, and thanks for joining us and working with the time difference there in Australia. So let's talk about the schedule, upcoming meetings. The 4DMethod schedule can always be found at 4dmethod.com/schedule. Our next meeting will welcome back John Bachman to take a look at some of the work that he's done with leveraging 4D with Dojo Web App, with a Dojo Web App front end. That'll be on April 25th after the summit. This is our last meeting before the summit. And then this summer, at least where we are in Chicago, when it won't be snowing, perhaps the only month, in June, on June 27th, I'll be doing a presentation on some services that we're looking to offer, and we've currently offered with 4DMethod for 4D mobile development services. So we've got open dates on August 8th, September 26th, and November 7th of this year. So if you've got some great stuff you're looking to share and would like to show to the community, please reach out to us at 4dmethod@gmail.com, and be happy to get you on the schedule. So thanks again, Steve, and thanks again to everyone at 4D, and to Ricardo, and to Ed, who's had to step out. But we will see you next time. Be sure to also check out the Patreon page for 4DMethod, where you can sign up to further support 4DMethod and get some great rewards for doing so. So thanks so much, and we'll look forward to seeing you all if you'll be in Washington. And yeah, thanks again for a great meeting, you guys.
Yeah, thank you, Brent. Thank you, Steve. Great
Thank
presentation.
you.
Okay. All right. Thanks. We'll see you soon.
Bye.
All right. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.